two of my worlds are colliding, kind of in a way. So obviously the hip hop background with this kind of whole channel is kind of about media coverage and sharing hip hop music, but the other side of me that I'm very kind of involved in is the political side, and Hasan Piker sat down with Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg show, their new spinoff after they exited Hot 97, and this is something I never really thought that I would ever see happen. I'm Sean Lonegevity with Bringing Down the Band and the New Old Heads podcast, and this is my Unpacked series, where I typically go deeper on New Old Heads segments, but today I'm gonna sit down and watch this Hasan Piker discussion. I've been following Hasan for quite a long time. You could call me a Hasan head, I guess, to some degree. I this kind of caught me out of the blue, so I'm very curious as to kind of like what they sit and talk about on this. So,
but before we do that, I started following you some time ago.
That's what I heard. I saw the clip.
Yeah, and only because I just saw a guy saying some cool stuff. I didn't really think of you as, you know, a political pundit per se. I just saw you as a smart dude trying to, and I think the premise of what I originally saw where you were trying to talk about white supremacy. And that was like, you were very like anti-white supremacy and trying to peel back those layers. Is that your main premise kind of streaming existence, or did it start somewhere else?
No, I mean, I started on Twitch specifically to talk about politics while I was playing video games with some of my friends.
What year is this we're talking about?
This is 2018. I was at the Young Turks already. And
interning, or you had a job?
No, I had a job. I started off interning at TYT in 2013, and I stayed there full time. I was doing ad sales and stuff. I basically moved on to the content side because I really wanted to do. I really wanted to be on camera, and I was really bad. I was so bad at it. So I was just like basically a fill. Whenever a producer wasn't there, I was like, I'll make myself available. Whenever there was on-camera talent that like a last-second cancellation, I was like, I'll do it for free. It's fine. So I did that. I snuck in as much as I could to be on camera, get on camera.
And your uncle is the Young Turk.
Yeah, he's the Young Turk. He's old now, but he's
not young, right? It's like when Jay used to say Young Hove.
Yeah, he's exactly. He was the Young Turk at the time. And he was so worried about nepotism allegations that he was like extra hard on me too. So he's like, "No, get back to the supply closet."
Right.
Well, we'll get to him in this conversation.
Oh yeah.
Y'all don't like each other right now anyway. So
no, I mean, I look, as my uncle, I love him. Even if I have significant criticisms of what he's up to every now and then.
But he brought you in and gave you the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's how you then found yourself on Twitch.
Yeah, so while I was at TYT a couple years in, I'm like doing this thing called The Breakdown. I designed the show for the Young Turks. It was very popular. I was like shitting on Tommy Lauren. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh, we did the same.
Yeah, and it was popping. Like I was getting like, because this was right when Facebook tuned up the video algorithm faucet. So I was getting like 30 million views a week. It was crazy.
That's kind of crazy because that's also the same time that I got hip to him. It was like right before the 2016 election. That's actually when I got hip to the Young Turks as well. I mean, it was 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. But that's how I got hip to him. He had these shorts for him, and I saw him on Facebook, and some of the stuff he was saying, I was like, hey, I agree with what this guy's saying.
Some of it was probably fake, but there was real attention, real eyeballs on this stuff. And I was like, you know, I need to get better off the cuff, because this was pre-scripted content that I was writing out ahead of time. So I was like, I need to get better off the cuff because I'm not very good on the fly. And so I was like, if I can play video games, as I'm already playing Fortnite anyway, and if I could talk about politics and be entertaining at the same time when my mind is preoccupied with a video game, I could probably get a lot. I mean, 8 years later, I never shut up, so I guess it worked out.
It certainly did. Were there other people doing that yet? Because that's now a whole... The whole people talking during video games about other things is like a gigantic economy.
Well, Twitch's whole thing is
basically that.
Yeah, people were doing that, but like not.
It's kind of it's cool that like Ebro and Rosenberg are like dipping into this. Like it's kind of cool to see Hasan. From one perspective, it's interesting how liberals are targeting him right now as like he's to blame for Trump and stuff, which is hilarious. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to see like super old media guys like Ebro and Rosenberg tap into this world a little bit. And I remember we talked about it on the New Old Heads a little bit about how, you know, like I think I even said like this could potentially be good for their growth and good for, you know, as they continue to grow their new brand. This is before they had this is the first time I've seen this brand new studio that looks really cool, you know, like, but it was before all this. And And I saw 𝗕𝗓 even make a video on Hasan Piker too, which is like, all right, that's kind of cool. But previously, people, old media just kind of shunned the stuff that like Hasan was doing. Like when you go live daily and you have 30 to 50 to even like up to like I think 70 to 100 and maybe more on political nights, but on just averaging like 30,000 people joining you on stream, like that's a pretty big viewership on a regular basis, especially for the demographic. So it's kind of cool to see, like Rosenberg and Ebro kind of invite Hasan on and talk on their platform,
as like heavily focused on politics.
And class politics was your biggest interest on the way.
Yeah.
Why your interest? What started your interest in politics? Why? What?
I grew up in Turkey, and when you're like Turkish people are very politically minded.
Okay.
Like they're always tuned in. They kind of have to be, because in America I feel like everything's on autopilot. You can even have Donald Trump as president. There's like tens of millions of people who are just like, I don't know what's going on. Right. Whereas in Turkey, I feel like people are a lot more hands-on. I don't know what it looks like now. I haven't been back in quite a while. But when I was growing up, like politics is what you discuss at the dinner table, right?
Sounds like my house.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. So basically, that was a reason. And then Erdogan came to power. I saw the changes taking place with like social conservatism in the country. Turkey is a secular country, right? So I was very frustrated by that. I saw the immediate impact in my life as well. So I was always very invested in the political process.
Got it. And then you come to the United States for school. And where did you go to school?
First, I went to University of Miami. I got into all these colleges.
Pause real quick, and this is an interesting thing. I know Hasan keeps his IP open for reactions. I don't know. We're gonna full send it. We're gonna see. Hopefully they like the amplification.
I got like crazy scholarships from all these colleges, academic scholarships.
So you had good grades.
I did, and I had
test well.
And I maxed out on my SAT math. I was not very good at everything else, but the SAT math was like super easy, because if you learned math in another country and you come to America, American math is like really funny.
Right.
Tell me more.
I mean, I can't do math equations to save my life now. I haven't touched math in a long time, but like we were getting Calc 2 education in like, I think 10th grade.
Wow.
So that's what also carried me in my first year in Miami as well.
I had Calculus 1 in college, which is crazy. I think I didn't even take pre-calc in high school. That's crazy.
I aced my Calc 1 and Calc 2, and then everything else was dog. Everything else was terrible. And I got foreign parents. They were like, we're not sending you to Miami to fail, because I got a 2.9. And they were like, that's an abject failure. You have to transfer. So I went to Rutgers, and I graduated from Rutgers.
Got it.
There you go, King Lou. Big Rutgers guy.
Big Rutgers guy with it. So now you're a big streamer, big lefty streamer. And when we talked about having you on the program, one of the first videos we got from our audience, because we have a significant black listening audience, was that you're anti-black and you're not a safe space for black people. So before sitting down and talking to you, I went down that rabbit hole, because in the streaming thing, whether you're a political streamer, streaming, doing whatever internet shenanigans, right? It's kind of like a flow of consciousness. Things are happening. It's just happening. And so I see a clip of someone telling you to stop talking about black people. And you were very dismissive to the individual and told him to suck your dick. At which point I was like, all right, that's not the way you want to handle that, especially if you're talking politics. Because it's tough to be off the cuff and dismissive while talking politics, right? Like that, people automatically are going to take that at face value and take it very serious. Yeah. But I would like to give you space to talk about how you feel about this narrative being shaped, and what are you willing to do to try to ingratiate yourself to people who are getting this narrative now, because now you're the bad guy. The right is you, or even the left is using you as the bad guy.
I wouldn't say the left is, but it's like there's a lot of right-wing elements within the liberal Democratic Party that is taking advantage of the attacks.
Well, the pro-Zionist, pro-Israel is definitely. I saw a post about him from the ADL.
Oh, the ADL.
Of course, the ADL.
Jonathan Greenblatt is my number one op.
Yeah,
but we'll get into that. But anyway, that's all being worked into this narrative.
But it is absolute. Like that is the major vector here. Like that's where a lot of the attacks are coming from. But just like how AIPAC never really talks about Israel in the elections that it intervenes in, the attacks aren't just about Israel, because they understand that like Israel has fallen out of favor. So they'll do these sorts of like hit pieces. And there's plenty of right-wingers, neo-Nazis that I've duked it out with on the internet for like the past decade or so.
Sure.
Which is precisely the reason why. And there's a litany of different like lines of attack that they can hit, where they will like chop up a short clip to be like, this guy is anti-black. But if you
clip economy,
clip economy,
and
so right wingers being like, look at this guy, he's anti-black, but look at the people who are saying
it's kind of cool to see like Ebro and Rosenberg are like, clip economy, you know, we're learning about that. It's like, the crazy thing about clip economy is it's like in its last stages at this point. But hey,
it would be like Himmler's Groyper 1488 being like, wow, this guy's really anti-black, and it's like it's just the N-word on their timeline, up and down. But people don't see that, right? And it's easy in many instances. It's kind of easy to trick people with that stuff, to get people on board with it, because I have talked for more than 21,000 hours live on politically contentious issues that people obviously have a personal connection with, and my commentary is from a framework that most people have no experience with whatsoever. Like anti-imperialist, Marxist, anti-capitalist positioning is not something that you normally hear in popular politics at all, and either people are oblivious to it or they've been antagonized towards it, right? Like, so they've learned that this is a bad thing, this is evil, this is anti-American, this is hateful. This is
one of the one things about Hasan that I think sometimes get lost even upon leftists, is that like Hasan is a great starting point, and this is not to diminish him at all, but like even for myself, like watching him helped me learn even more nuance about things that I was kind of new in passing. But him being live, and how he talked about it, he would, when you watch his lives, he'll get on there and he'll kind of do what we're doing here. He'll watch it, he'll pause, and then he'll break it down. And so like he'll go into detail on the things in that particular nature. One of the things that I can definitely say that he educated me on was the Palestinian Israel understanding and the movement, or not the movement, but what was going on there. And I was really kind of oblivious before he started talking about it. Now, granted, this is like, I'm not talking like since October 7th. I'm talking about 2019, 2020, like pre-COVID, things of that nature. That's when I was starting to, because he would talk about, the stuff that was going on there. And so, but he broke it down for me in a way to where, like, even though I wanted to be more educated and wanted to be more knowledgeable about the thing, it was a very good starting point into me doing my own research as well, like taking what he's saying and then going out and then like learning more about this thing. And again, because he frames this and he comes from very much like an anti-imperialist nature, anti-colonialism, more from a socialist background, not a capitalist background, and the things of that nature. It just how he conducts his show is a very good starting point for people that want to learn more and then potentially take that into the next. So I think Hasan's very important from that perspective, and he's very accessible. He's very accessible, and probably to his own detriment to the fact that he streams so much. So you can catch him. Like, if you're watching this, there's a very good chance that he's live right now. Like, go to twitch.tv/HasanAbi. He might be live right now, and if he's not, he probably was live 2 or 3 hours ago, or is going to be live in a few hours. You know what I mean? So he's accessible. He's got a big community. There's things around that. So yeah, just want to speak to that real quick.
But do you think you understand the nuances of racial dynamics in America as somebody who's only been here for 20? 15 years? Not only
is that difficult to grasp, but I'm also I'm white, you know? So there's obviously,
so you do recognize some blind spots.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
of course. And I would never say like, oh, I understand the black experience. Like, that's insane, right? I mean, look, I can only compare it to my experience as someone whose name is Hasan, who's been getting called, Osama bin Laden incarnate for the last 10 years of my media career. It's still going to be very different than anti-blackness, which I think is very insidious and baked into virtually every orifice of American existence. Like, it's in all of our cultural institutions. It's in the criminal justice system. It's in every aspect of our lives.
It's ragu, man. It's in there. It's in the sauce.
Which is precisely, like, it's ironic because I talk about this all the time. It's there are many different ways of being anti-black without actually saying the key words that, like, white people tune into, or even white people understand it as anti-blackness. Like there's a million different things that you can do before you get to, posting an AI video of, like, Michelle and Barack Obama as monkeys, which is, like, universally established as, like, one of the most anti-black things you can do, that even racist people will be like, I'm checking out of this one.
Right.
I'm
racist, but this is too far.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're gonna clip that.
Yeah, that's a clip too. No, wait, so with you though specifically, when people were coming for you, in this one clip I saw moving around where you were being dismissive, what is the crux of it?
There's multiple videos.
There's a couple clips. There's a couple clips. So, like, the inception back in the day when I was at the Young Turks,
which is low-key, like, the clips that they're talking about are, like, the recent clips. This has been going on with him for forever, but it's really kind of expanded maybe in the last month or so to where, like, even, like, major news networks are, like, running with it. And it's
Turks, I was known as, like, the white guy who was, like, very pro Black Lives Matter, even before, when liberals weren't so fond of Black Lives Matter under the Obama administration. I was a commentator who was, talking about criminal justice reform. So, like, that is how I started off. The turning point was actually not even recent. It was
turning point, pun intended or not?
No, not pun intended.
I was like, where's
no
this
Kirk? No Kirk.
No 𝗕𝗔𝗡𝗚𝗓.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
No, the turning point was Nicki Minaj.
Oh,
yeah.
Which
turn?
2021, I think, when she was talking about her cousin's balls.
Didn't he ratio her?
And I ratioed her, and I was like, the world is awaiting your scientific contributions, like, because she was like, oh, I'm trying to do my own research. Then I ratioed her, and then she went on this whole tangent with, like, Tucker Carlson, and I was like, Tucker Carlson's a white supremacist. And basically, like, and she got really mad about that. She was like, I'm a black woman. I know, I know someone who, I know if someone is racist, like, I know that. I don't need to hear, like, a white boy telling me that, whatever. And then her fans, like the Barbs,
they swarmed you.
The Barbs swarmed me, and then, like, Black Twitter was like, this guy is anti-black. He's
but what specifically did you say? Just because you were trying to tell, like, you kind of clowned a tweet of hers.
Yeah, and then I was critical of that collaboration.
Well, I think
the Nicki Tucker Carlson collab.
History has served you well, sir.
Very well.
I know.
On that one,
a lot of those, like, super Barbs are now very anti-Nicki.
Yeah.
So
but you do take ownership and accountability of the other things that were triggering for your, black people who may have seen your videos as dismissive. You do take accountability to that.
Yeah. So that was just the starting point. And then all these other clips are usually someone coming in and doing standpoint epistemology to be like, well,
I don't subscribe to that stuff.
It's a black person, which, by the way, I don't even know if they are, right? Like, it's just an anonymous account, but they'll be like, one of the clips that's going around is someone being like, black people really care about the border. Like, black people are actually very much on board with ICE. And it was one of those things where I was like, the fuck, what are you talking about? Like, one, that's not true, and two, I don't give a fuck if even if it was true, I was still.
This is one of those things that even I get into trouble with, even on here sometimes. And when I say in trouble, I mean people. Look, I'm a white person in a hip hop space, for a very, very long time, and I talk about stuff, but I don't operate from the perspective that black people are monoliths, and I don't operate from the perspective that simply because you are necessarily black, you necessarily understand all of black issues 100% and how it affects everything. And that goes with everything, not just black issues. That goes with anybody that's doing anything. Just because I'm a professor doesn't necessarily mean that I understand everything within my realm 100% in the same type of way across the board. Just because I'm a musician doesn't mean that I understand all the things. Nothing is monolithic in that particular type of way. And for me to say, hey, because I'm this, and because I'm a musician, and because this is a part of my identity, because this is something that's been a part of me in my entire life, I speak for every single person. And anybody that tries to deny that is denying reality of everyone's reality. And I deny that pretty wholeheartedly. I think it's anti-intellectualism. So doesn't mean that there's not like a juxtaposition or a intersectionality to where there are things that I don't understand as a white person. That's very true and very possible, right? Because I can only understand my experience and I can only try to understand certain experiences to some degree. But there are certain specific truths that exist that simply because you are something, you can't deny facts. So it is sensitive to a lot of people, and especially, and I understand that as somebody who's been in this and has been criticized for this for a very long time, but there are also a lot of bad actors out there.
Wouldn't care.
Wouldn't affect your opinion on the border.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, I don't play by the standpoint epistemology rules of like, well, as a black person, I have this experience, I have this lived experience, and therefore you have to listen to me defend right-wing policies that are inherently anti-black.
Just because I'm black.
Yeah, exactly. So that
well, it's also too, I think, there's this a singular black person. Any black person doesn't speak for all black people. Yeah, and there are black people who do have that outlook.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that just because they're black, as you're pointing out, they get to take space in your platform if you don't want them to,
or that they're right.
And simply because they add the thing before it, well, as a black person, that means you have to stop what you're doing and be like, well, let me hear espouse your right-wing ideology then.
Yeah, my policy is if you're right-wing, if you're reactionary, if you're a fascist, or if you're a fascist collaborator, I'm going to treat you like a fascist collaborator. It doesn't matter. Obviously, there's red lines that I won't cross. Sure. I'm not going to like say slurs, you know what I mean? But if someone comes in with like, oh, well, as a black person, I think Donald Trump is the best president, I'm going to be like, suck my dick. Like, And if you clip it out of context, you're like, wow, this guy's really anti-black.
Well, and also just, and I make fun of Rosenberg for this. You're also just white.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you say things and they come out of your orifice with this look,
right.
No, I understand that.
People are going to go...
Even under the best of, like, we've gone through the experience over the years where him and I can be going back and forth on a thing. We agree on 90% of issues. And someone will be like, nah, Rosenberg sucked today. Ebro, you were on point. And it's like, well, we were just agreeing all day today.
Yeah, we joke about it all the time. Shouts to Jay Moore. We joke about it all the time about how, like, this is a recurring thing whenever we have something that's kind of controversial, something, we'll all sit and talk about the same thing. And like Jay will say something and then I'll say something. They'll be like, that white boy needs to, or what's he always say? Sit your white ass down. It's just be like, we said the same thing, but yeah, sometimes you can't get away from it. It's what it is.
Yeah. But some people, they're going to get what
happens. But I understand that. There's always going to be people with biases. I have my own hangups too from my own lived experiences. I try to be as open-minded as possible, but I have a very firm and well-defined worldview. And if someone comes in and one of the things that like is unbelievably annoying that I think most people also hate is whenever people do that shit. When they're like, well,
and that's how I am too. So
as a person of this background, like as a bisexual person of color, I think we should actually have Nazis in mainstream discourse. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you're doing in your sexual experiences or what your background is. Like, no, that's fucking ridiculous.
So I just want to recap.
Yeah.
White supremacists. Don't like them.
No.
Very anti.
Nazis.
Don't like them.
Fascists.
Don't like them.
Neo-colonialists.
No. It's just...
Imperialists.
No, don't like them.
He's against the bad guys, is what you're saying.
Well, but the problem is a lot of bad guys don't want to say they're bad guys.
I know.
So what they do instead is turn me into a bad guy for calling them out.
Now,
that's generally been the tactic throughout.
But I would say this. I was listening to some of the press run you've been on over the last couple of weeks, and what I'm struck by is that a lot of things. You're very impressive. You're really good speaking about a lot of different things. You also are an algorithm hustler. Like, you do know what gets the people going. You know what I mean? Meaning, hear me out. Your belief system is your belief system. The language that you use can be intentionally harsh to cut through. I mean, I've even heard you say that.
Oh yeah, no, I do that on purpose. Yeah, for sure.
So that's called we call that
algorithm hustling because you know that's going to get through and get to people.
So
maybe I need to algorithm hustle a little bit more.
The examples that I'll give you that is in the news right now that I do by design, I guess if you want to call it algorithmic hustling, that's true.
The Hamas one.
Yeah, there you go.
That one, because I heard you explain this on Pod Save America for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it became clear to me over the 20 minutes that, like, you don't think highly of Hamas. What you really feel strongly about is the horrors of the Israeli government and what they've been doing to Palestinian people for 80 years.
Yeah.
And then use the contrast to make this point that, and I did agree with you at one point, because yes, I was offended by it when I heard the thing. I'd be like, who would choose Hamas for anything? They're just matter-of-factly not good at what they do at the very least. But when you did say it's something that will it get liberals to think,
yes.
I did say, as much as I hated it when I heard it, it did lead to me going, well, what is he saying here?
And again, that goes back to my point that I'd made recently about Hasan being a good starting point. Like, he does a really good job of forcing people to challenge things. And I look at this as a pipeline. You know, like when I was growing up, I grew up in a very conservative household. I had to deconstruct conservatism. I had to deconstruct that to where then I became a little bit more liberal, right? Then I had to continually deconstruct as, you know, throughout my life and things of that nature. But it doesn't happen at once, right? And what you need to deconstruct things are voices that you can kind of resonate with, or people that break it down in a way that can cut through the nonsense. And I feel like Hasan does a really good job of that specifically. And, you know, when I look at it from that perspective, that's also how I treat things a lot of times as well. And I don't know, maybe there's, you know, I feel like I've always been doing this, but maybe there's some of that's rubbed off on me in a particular way from watching him. I don't know. But like sometimes you have to say the thing to get people to come in. And once you get in there, if they are of good faith and they actually do feel strongly about the thing, sometimes that's the only way you can break through the cognitive dissonance that exists in that space. And it's not something that's going to happen like, oh, cognitive dissonance is gone. No, that is a process that takes years, but sometimes it takes that cutting through to spark and plant that idea in there. And I think that is important.
The problem is, and I think they said this on Pod Save America to you, there are certain people who would otherwise side with you where it hits them so harshly. Not a lot because of October 7th, but also because of other things, that it makes it hard for them to hear the rest of what you might have to say.
Yeah, but that's normal. We want everything right now. We want everything right now. And that's not how learning works. And that's not how deconstructing of the mind works, you know? And so that's fundamentally a problem.
And that's a risk you're willing to take.
Someone's got to break that wall. I think that's the way I see it, because it's not just about like my personal perspective on Hamas in general, but it's also about the humanity of Palestinians. Because like it's easy for us to be like, oh, those guys are bad. They did October 7th. Like that's heinous. It's horrifying. But most people don't factor in the pain that Palestinian people have withstood that has led them to take action, sometimes even heinous action against civilians, right? Like that's an act of desperation. And I think for a lot of people, they don't understand that. People just say, oh no, you're just supposed to like sit there and be perfect victims, sit there and take it. And I want people to understand like two things. One, that if you do this to human beings, if you drop them into this like hermetically sealed open air prison, eventually they're going to try to fight their way out of that, right?
And what do you expect? Do you expect them to just sit and take it? You know, like Hamas is a resistance group, you know, so you can surely understand why they are trying to exist, you know, like, or at least where they are formed from.
No matter what happens, especially if there's no pathway to peace that you have designed for them. Now, this is obviously a big point of contention, and that's precisely the reason why a lot of liberal Zionists, for example, will say, no, Israel has tried to do peace. You can't do peace with Hamas. They're crazy, whatever. They're anti-Semitic. Like, their primary motivation there is not the death and destruction of Jewish people or to kill as many Jewish people as possible, no matter how hard mainstream media presents it as such. Their primary directive in that situation, and the Al-Aqsa flood operation, which was conducted not just by Hamas, but Hamas was like the banner carrier, I guess. It was the entirety of the Palestinian resistance, is to make the apartheid as costly as possible for the Israeli state, to make the occupation as costly as possible.
Costly financially.
Not just costly financially, but like with a human toll as well, like kidnapping and doing things that are totally illegal under international law. But it's an act of desperation from them.
Yeah, it's grasping at straws in ways like how can we actually get people to pay attention to us, because people are not paying attention to the atrocious things that are happening, right?
And the reason why I think it's important to have these sorts of discussions is because the overwhelming majority in mainstream news covers Hamas as like almost this alien force, this alien force that was dropped on top of Gaza, that like they're not comprised entirely of Palestinian orphans. Like this is an orphan militia when you think about it. Like these are people that I'm not going to agree with in many respects, but at the end of the day, as far as like ending the occupation, that's something that I want to happen. That's something that the overwhelming majority of the Western world, and certainly the entirety of the third world, wants to happen, because they understand like Israel's position as a settler colonial entity in the region.
But isn't it as simple to some degree as like evil and violence begets evil and violence? And what Israel has done to Palestinian people, while October 7th still, makes my skin crawl, and obviously you see the
There's power dynamics, Rosenberg. Power dynamics. They're important.
Nova Festival, and anyone with a heart sees those videos and goes, Jesus Christ, this is a nightmare. But to see that it is possible
that operates from the perspective that Israel power and the Palestinian power of resistance are operating like two equal forces, when that's not the case, right? And that's the problem with that framing from my perspective.
You've made those things possible, unfortunately. Now, we could also say literally made those things possible if you have serious question marks about how the IDF allowed this thing to even happen. I don't know if you've ever...
No. I'm familiar with all the theories. I understand that, like, my assessment on that is like it's part hubris and part... I guess taking advantage of like what you knew could potentially happen there, moving the troops to the West Bank, not having any like
no one was on duty.
Yeah, making sure the Nova Festival went an additional day as well.
Because that part I didn't know.
Yeah, there was apparently Nova Festival was supposed to be a 2-day endeavor, and they added an extra day on the third day, which happened to be October 7. But there's all these different things, but I'm not even talking about that. Like, I'm not even talking about like, did Benjamin Netanyahu allow this to happen?
Right.
I'm sure.
No. This is the overall part that allowed it to happen.
Yeah. The thing that I'm getting to is, you kill people, you rape them, you cordon them off of society, you belittle them, you humiliate them, you surveil them. They're gonna fight back, and if you do that for 75 plus years. Sometimes they're going to fight back in an unbelievably vicious way, because what you've done as a state, even though it's invisible to us because we see state violence as like totally normal, right? And justifiable because there's a legal process behind it. When you do that to people, they're gonna fight back as hard as you have fought to subjugate them. And
wouldn't you expect that? You know what I mean? I don't know.
And the reason, and an example I used in the Pod Save interview was also the Nat Turner Rebellion, right? The Nat Turner Rebellion was unbelievably brutal. I mean, they were chopping up babies inside of cribs. Like that's
bad stuff.
Yeah, it's a bad event.
What happened to get them to that point?
Exactly. Right. 400 years of chattel slavery. No one is looking at the Nat Turner Rebellion and going, well, I really want to dial in on this. And I think when the dust is settled, we'll have a similar attitude about Palestinian resistance and the militancy if, justice is served in the future, and I hope it will be.
But don't you feel like Hamas and Israel both were very clear on that there would just be mass civilian victims? Hamas knows we do October 7th. If it works out the way we want, they will respond in a way that's absolutely heinous. It's completely worked, by the way. They've been completely successful. They have successfully, they brutalized innocent people, many innocent people on October 7th. Israel.
I hate this talking point because it's like, again, it ignores the power dynamics completely. Like, do you think that they're sitting over here thinking, man, we can either be occupied and things can continue to be really bad, or we can strike at them and things can continue to be really bad? Like,
Israel responded with an absolute insane response and eventual genocide. The world has now vastly turned on Israel.
Well, not the world. The world didn't fuck with Israel at all.
But it's gotten worse.
The Western world.
The Western world. Sorry. The Western world, a lot more mainstream people have turned on Israel.
Yeah.
But Hamas was also, as Israel was, comfortable that in there would be thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent deaths.
Yeah. I don't know the calculations, right, of Yahya Sinwar, but what I will say is this. Israel is not a natural disaster. They're human beings that were pushing those buttons. There were human beings that set up the AI programs that would send a drone strike automatically when they decided someone was a militant that was coming home, right? those are all decisions that human beings made. And there were decisions on our end as the American state that we made, where we decided we're just going to let Israel do whatever it wants. And there were plenty of
funding,
and there were plenty of people, even in the American State Department, who recognized that this was going to be deadly. It was already beginning to be deadly. I think a week after October 7, Israel had already killed more people, more civilians than Hamas had killed, right? And everybody knew exactly what was happening and what was going to happen. Everyone that knew anything about like the mowing of the lawn operations that Israel had engaged in, like Cast-Led and numerous others, year after year, where they killed, thousands of Palestinians and exploded buildings, including the Associated Press building, famously in 2021. So people knew what was up already, and they wanted to stop it, but Joe Biden was unbelievably pro-Israel, like ideologically committed to Israel his whole life, despite his Catholic background.
In the way many centrist Democrats always have been, like,
but
this
is
is what we do.
Beyond that,
no, he was the real deal. He was
even more aggro on Israel than even like a regular Zionist Democrat is. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, they triggered the response certainly with October 7, but Israel had every opportunity to go, you know what?
We're not taking the bait here.
We're not going to do this. Like, we need to chart a different path forward. Of course, it wasn't going to happen because the primary directive on the Israeli side is guided by unbelievable amounts of racism. Like, that's why I always say, like, Zionism is a Nazi ideology. It's a fascist.
And that's something you have to understand how triggering that is.
Oh,
for
no,
Jewish
I know.
people.
That's another one.
Again, that's an intentional.
That's another one.
Like,
it's a fascist ideology that is unbelievably racist. Like, that it's a supremacist ideology that dictates that the outgroup, specifically Palestinians, Arabs, Christian, Muslim alike, are lesser, and they need to be dealt with violently and militarily, which is part of the reason why, people who do end up visiting even the West Bank and see the occupation, people like Ta-Nehisi who have written extensively on defending Israel. Ironically enough, at the Atlantic, the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic is a former Israeli concentration camp guard. They're not too fond of me either. They write a lot of negative articles about
the
me.
Atlantic?
The Atlantic magazine, yeah. But Ta-Nehisi used to write for the Atlantic, and he was very, he'd written extensively about reparations for Black Americans, and used the reparations, the aftermath, the Holocaust to Israel as a positive example. And he has had a major attitude change after he saw this. And now he's become one of the best voices on. Yeah, he became a strong advocate for the pro-Palestinian movement after he saw it, because it's virtually impossible. Once you see it, it's impossible to unsee it.
Have you gotten to have conversations with Jewish, non-Zionists, anti-Zionists, Reform Zionists, who are able to articulate for you, though, why the atrocities that Israel has committed recently and previously, why it's very hard for people to square, based on maybe their experience with family members who have died in the Holocaust, what we've been taught our entire lives about what Israel was supposed to be?
It's just like indoctrination, man. It's just us Americans, we're indoctrinated, white Americans in a lot of ways. And I've talked about this so many times. Indoctrination is so deep everywhere. Propaganda is good.
I'm saying all of that to say there are a lot of people who I'm sure are triggered by you and immediately you must be anti-Semitic. And I'm not trying to give them a pass for that, but I am trying to explain that, like, it's hard for people to have a real come to Jesus about a place that they've been taught about their whole life and have fond thoughts of is not what they believed it was. And it's easy on the internet for people to say, I'm not talking about you specifically, for people to say anyone who ever has a positive thought about Israel is the worst ever and is a hateful person. That shows a complete lack of understanding for the natural human experience for anyone who was told in any way that there were positive things about Israel. Have you gotten to have, like, dialogue about
those are facts, though. Rosenberg's kind of spitting there that those are facts. And it's the same thing with, again, it's the same, I talk about it all the time. It's the same thing with the wide experience of people that are deconstructing their own whiteness and white supremacy within the United States of America, and how that is passed down through the generations, from the silent and greatest generations to the boomer generations and to the Gen X's to I'm a older millennial and things of that nature. It's just like each generation deconstructs that a little bit more. You know what I mean? And the propaganda is good, man.
About that and understand why people could be super sensitive. But if you take the time, I can tell that you're not a hateful person who hates Jewish people. You have strong feelings about Israel, but we were intentionally coached to believe that if someone has strong anti-Israel opinions, it means they're anti-Semitic. That was part of the plan.
But you've come on our program to a space of acknowledging that you need to do work to unlearn that.
Continue to unlearn that. Well,
Because we've had conversations about the premise of Israel, like the premise of the British and the Americans saying, "Hey, take this space right here; it's yours. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, we're doing it all for the love. We think you guys will be happy.
We're supporting Jews. We want you to be safe
because we love Jews. That's why we're so big on taking you during the Holocaust.
The Jews can't come to America.
No, we don't want you to come here.
No.
Go there.
Go there.
But it's hard because
I sped it up a little bit, so hopefully that's all right.
Because I have, I have family there right now, so it's a hard thing to unlearn and deal with.
The only person who was in opposition to the Balfour Declaration was the only Jewish MP at the time in the British British Parliament. And he was a
like, this is a bad idea. I don't think we all need to be right there.
Yeah, no, they were like, I mean, it was always like Christian Zionism in some respects was always like the backbone of the Zionist movement,
financially speaking, or even the ideology.
Both financially and ideologically as well. It wasn't even like the dispensationalist or like the Christian evangelical theological justifications necessarily, but they always were like, yeah, let's get these Jews out of here and send them.
So it was a double whammy. It was, hey, let's get the Jews out of here, and also we put them front facing.
Yeah.
But we know that then when Christ comes back, we'll have Israel also. Is that the logic?
I mean, for the overwhelming majority of evangelical Protestants in the country that are evangelical Zionists now, that is the mentality. The idea is Jews are chosen, and the chosen sons and daughters of God got to go there so that we can trigger the rapture. We go to Megiddo. Jesus Christ comes back on earth and fights the forces of the devil in Megiddo,
bada boom, bada
which triggers the rapture. They all become clothes, right? They get harponzoed into the space. This is a legitimate thing that
no, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
People in office believe this stuff.
Well, and for the audience that's watching this, and I'm sure people are in their emotions about whatever they're in their emotions about, because there's a lot to unpack. There are billions of dollars sent to Israel by
goofy Christians United for Israel is like
I was just going to say Christian nationalists who also are the same people who separated the black church and the white church, because the most segregated day in America is Sunday, where black people are at one church and white people are at another church, which that goes back hundreds of years. But these people have been funding this.
But isn't this the perfect transition point to another thing I know we want to get to, which is that, and this is so frustrating, I'm sure you deal with this, parsing out the actual hateful people. In my case, I'll call them anti-Semites. You can also call them white supremacists, because they are. But the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons and the people who have now found this issue as their big calling card, but have previously said actual anti-Semitic things for years. And anti-black.
Oh, yeah.
Very anti-black.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you parse that?
And also pro-Israel things, too. That's the other thing. Like, Candace Owens used to be pro-Israel. When she was saying... Because I've been tracking... I track and do commentary on misinformation. That's like a big part of what I do. And also specifically...
It's kind of what I was speaking to earlier about how he would legitimately... This is one of the good things, again, that Hasan has always done a good job of cutting through the bullshit. He will watch something and then he will tell you exactly... He commentates on stuff that's happening on commentators a lot of times. So he'll give you the perspective and be like, well, this is why this is this. And this is why this is this. And then you take that information, you run with it, right? But like, he's been speaking about Candace Owens for years.
Right-wing extremism, right? Neo-Nazis and the like. This is my bread and butter. This is what I've been doing for many, many years, and cutting through their propaganda. So I'm very familiar with Candace Owens. Candace Owens famously said Adolf Hitler just wanted to make Germany great, and that Adolf Hitler became a globalist when he started invading other countries, and she found that to be a defensible statement, which is insane, because like the Nuremberg race laws were a part of making Germany great, right? So she was already deeply anti-Semitic from the jump, but she was pro-Israel. The reason why that's important is because Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire knew that she was deeply anti-Semitic and still hired her because she was pro-Israel. Once after October 7, she started seeing which way the wind was blowing and was like, wait a minute, this is actually a fantastic opportunity for me to beef up my credibility, and started becoming anti-Israel. That's when Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring were like, you're fired. So they didn't care that she was anti-Semitic as long as she was...
Or anti-black, clearly.
Or, of course, they hired her for being anti-black. But, Ben Shapiro... He's Jewish. He cares about anti-Semitism, certainly,
you would
to
think.
a certain degree. Yeah,
but you're saying the priority,
the priority is Israel.
Was Israel over actually being Jewish,
and it's always been the case. I mean, David Horowitz passed away, rabid Islamophobe. David Horowitz was the one who plucked Candace Owens and made her into a conservative commentator. David Horowitz is the guy who found her. Originally, she was doing like a pro Barack Obama, anti-Trump blog back in the day, before any of this stuff. And David Horowitz plucked her and was like, you have real talent. And
let's see you do something else.
Yeah,
and then Kanye put the gasoline on it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, but she's always been a mercenary for whatever like malign
hired gun.
Yeah, whatever right wing attitudes exist out there.
So
she's there to put a black face on that white supremacist.
So how do you feel about your uncle doing one interview after another with old Tucker Carlson these days?
Well, first of all, I want to do an interview with Tucker Carlson, but it would be contentious, right? Like there's gonna be, because I'm fascinated and I want to understand where he's coming from. Like I want to see if this is a genuine sea change. I don't believe it is.
Until I hear him apologize to Barack Obama and Michelle Obama for all of that racist shit he did,
he's never
not buying it. And I'm stuck in controlled opposition.
Yeah.
As the Republicans know Trump is on the way out and they got to pivot, Candace, Tucker, this whole thing is controlled opposition.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So I have had this exact same conversation with Cenk on this exact same issue where he'll be like, well, these guys are anti-Israel. Like, we need any ally we can get on our side. And I'm like...
And again, if you're not familiar, they've kind of mentioned it here, but Cenk is the owner, creator of the Young Turks, which is kind of... I feel like they were more leftist early on. I feel like they kind of switched a little bit, but they are a little bit left of typical Democratic establishment. But Cenk is kind of back and forth, and he's been doing these interviews with and discussions with Tucker Carlson, who has seemingly been having a come to Jesus moment of late. So
these guys are not actually anti-Israel. Like they are not. They're not tackling this issue from a humanitarian perspective at all. I would say maybe with Tucker Carlson, at least like his anti-Israel perspective, regardless of the anti-Semitism, might genuinely be because he like saw so much carnage. And I think there are a lot of people who are just like, okay, this is too much, right?
Sure.
But it still doesn't matter because a lot of these people want to do Israel in America. And that's what I get so frustrated by.
Yeah.
Like Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, Holocaust denier, Holocaust enjoyer even. And Nick Fuentes, his argument against Israel almost comes across like he's jealous.
I just have to pause real quick and say I love this conversation. I love seeing Hasan in this space, talking to Ebro and Rosenberg, and he's taking it a step further than what they would typically take it as. Not to say that they don't necessarily agree, on certain things, but he's taking it there, and I feel like this is very important for the growth of the quote unquote progressive movement, but also like, I like it. I like this.
Like he's like, why do the Jews get to do this in Israel, but us Christian whites, which also in contention.
Sometimes it's easy to get into a silo, because a leftist silo, especially because of algorithms and stuff. But when you go out into the real world, you realize that there's not a lot of people that necessarily fully align with who you are. I say something on Threads, and sure, I'll see leftist stuff all the time and things of that nature, but you leave that, it's not what it is. So yeah, no, I really like this conversation.
Mentioned with Nicolas Fuentes, but he thinks he's a part of the in-group.
Right. Sure.
But he wants to do that in America. And same with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, I call him a WASP nationalist, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant nationalist. He wants to do an Israel-style reactionary fascist country here in the United States of America for his chosen in-group. These guys all want that.
Well, Candace Owens was White Lives Matter, and George Floyd deserved it, and all these different version of that, all these different things that showed no care of black or brown people in America. But I'm supposed to believe in earnest that you truly care about the well-being of black and brown people overseas, without there being any sort of agenda there. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to believe.
That's exactly my point. You're nailing it. That is precisely what I believe as well, because it's like if you don't have a humanitarian foundation in your worldview where you want to like uplift people, then it kind of comes across as hollow. Because like Tucker Carlson every week we're hearing make really good points against very powerful people, and he's getting
in the clip economy.
Yeah, in the clip economy, right? Exactly.
He keeps bringing up the clip economy. That's funny. We've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene do the same thing, by the way. Let's keep it a buck here.
It's big out there in the clip.
We see clips all the time.
Yeah, he's cooking Mike Huckabee, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's popping off, right? But then if you scratch the surface, like every other week, he's got like a white supremacist on the show, and they're talking about how the Great Replacement is happening in the United States of America, and like we got to put an end to it. We got to make sure
he had Fuentes on the show, right?
Yeah, he has had Fuentes on the show. Now he says he had Fuentes on the show so he could oppose Nick Fuentes' worldview, right? That's his argument.
And sometimes there's I'm I'm halfway in between of like platforming things and or being able to. Here's the argument against both, right? One of the arguments is you don't platform at all. You don't even give the light of day. You don't give it anything. The other perspective is there are a lot of people on the fringes and you need to at least address it. And so like, if you see this, you have to be counter opposition to this thing to create that dissentment in a way, or to give people an alternative to think about so that this doesn't just flood, you know? And this is something that resonated with me based upon stuff that we did on the New Old Heads, because, and they just mentioned Kanye West. We made it a thing to intentionally not talk about Kanye for a long time because of the stuff we didn't want to amplify him. But then I heard something that Curtis King said, shouts to Curtis, something along the line. I don't know if it was related to Kanye, but it was related to something, but it was about being the counter voice to the narrative that is being dominant. And I'm like, that is a great point. And I was like, there needs to be, if there, you know, it's like the idiocracy, like the beginning part of idiocracy, where it's just like the people don't have kids because they're just like, oh, the world's too crazy. And there has to be counter voices to the crazy batshit stuff. Otherwise, the other stuff becomes normalized. And so, like, I'm not 100% on board with, like, don't platform people. Sometimes it's good to platform people and then just destroy their points, you know, and to make it feel like, make us normal people feel like we're not crazy for believing the opposite of what seems to be the popular thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's my perspective on that.
For it, but he didn't really offer a lot of pushback to Nick Fuentes on a lot of these key issues. He's had other Holocaust revisionist historians on the show. He plays fast and loose with that stuff on purpose.
And so does Candace.
No, Candace doesn't play fast and loose. She's just fast. She's just all the way.
It's all Myron Gaines, who we know loves the Holocaust. She has him on platforms.
I just learned who Myron was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know who Fresh and Fit was?
No. I knew him. I knew his face from yelling at some strippers.
Oh, yeah.
And the world was like, why is this goofy yelling at strippers?
That's what got them big.
I didn't
his real name.
I don't know if they were strippers, bro.
Oh.
They were just like, I think, maybe
No, they were OnlyFans girls.
Like OnlyFans.
Yeah. Oh, okay, my bad. Scantily clad individuals.
Yeah. That's how the brand started, and it's evolved into now.
And then people were yelling at me, "You don't know who Myron is?" I was like, "I don't know."
I'm shocked by that too. I mean, he has some notoriety at least. He doesn't have a lot of motion, but he.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you how out of the algo.
He's like Andrew Tate light.
Yeah.
It took Charlie Kirk getting murdered, okay, and the Yankees at Yankee Stadium doing a moment of silence for me to understand how big Charlie Kirk was.
But
that was after he died.
He wasn't even that big. They were just hyping his. They were.
Wait, what?
You don't think his numbers were actually that big?
No,
he wasn't John Blaze, is what you said.
No, here's the thing about Charlie. I've known Charlie for years. I debated him many times. I was supposed to debate him 2 weeks after he got shot and killed. We were supposed to debate at Dartmouth University. Obviously, that got canceled.
Obviously,
but I've tracked his career just like with Candace Owens for a very long time. And his starting point was Foster Friesen. He went to Foster Friesen in Chicago, wealthy guy that his father knew, and begged him for money to start basically like AIPAC, but for conservatism in student elections in high schools and college campuses. And his whole thing was going to wealthy Republican donors and convincing them that he was actually turning young people Republican. That failed spectacularly for years and years and years, only until the Twitter purchase. Only until Twitter was being blocked by the Democrats and potentially being sold. That's when Twitter changed the algorithm, tweaked the algorithm in favor of Donald Trump, and that's when Charlie Kirk actually started blowing up amongst the youth. So it was a relatively new phenomena that people knew who Charlie Kirk was in my age group. Before then, people didn't know who he was at all.
But but at the end, when he was murdered, he was. You do think he was pretty big at that point? No,
Yeah,
he hadn't seen it. I'd seen a lot of.
Yeah, that was the last. Like, did I say Twitter being sold? I meant TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok algorithmic boost that gave him real credibility for the first time ever, like real audiences for the first time.
Did you guys talk offline as well?
Not really, no.
So your interactions were in public forums?
Yeah, I mean, we have some like private DMs that go back to like last time I talked to him in private was like 2017.
Did you get anything from the debates with him? Did you find there to be any value in those conversations?
I mean, there's always value in attacking your opposition and showing people like how to handle conversations like that. But beyond that, there was no like, oh, we came to an agreement on anything.
Of course.
You know, I don't think that stuff it works that way.
Wow, man, this has been a great combo. Hang on, Hasan. Yo, everybody out there that's watching right now on the live, you can watch the rest of the convo. We're going to continue on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all the things to the ELR show. Ebro, Laura Rosenberg.
So there's more. All right, so we're an hour in, but is there really more? Oh, there's 2 parts. Oh, wow. There's 2 parts. Hold on, where's the memberships? Where's the membership button? Where is the membership button? This is a problem, ain't it? Surely they've got a membership on here. All right. I don't know where it exists. I don't know if they have more links? Do they have it doesn't look like it. So I don't know. I guess we'll stop there. I don't know if there's more, but that's okay. I think we've covered a lot there. Now, all things considered, love the conversation. I think platforming Hasan in this particular way was great for their show, and I think it's also great for Hasan to. It's very good messaging, because especially when you think about hip hop and where everything derives from, a lot of the ideologies that Hasan holds are very dear and close to hip hop in that particular type of way. But that's another conversation. But yeah, check out the Ebro. I always say his name wrong. Check out the Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg show, or the ELRS. They brand new stuff. They're up to almost 70,000 subscribers now. So continue to support these guys and their continual growth and their independent journey, which I love. That allows them to do all the stuff that they want to do without having the people on top of them and dictating what they do. But yeah, check them out. Shouts to Hasan. And yeah, this is Unpacked with me, Lonegevity. I will catch you next time. Peace.